just had
Oh, not at all.
to put that in, a little bit about what's the real problem. I have a little theory. I would say that, and I know this is America and we have private industry, but if insurance companies were not for profit and they had to keep everything back into the company, anything they make has to go back into the company if you're not for profit, would that somehow help the overall system? If they couldn't make, like you take an insurance company that I read about that had so much money, they had to go outside the country and buy another company overseas to spend some money so that they wouldn't have to pay all those taxes on that profit that they made. So,
well, I think, frankly, if you took the profit motive out, you're talking about the medical field ceasing to operate as a part of a free market. I think the result could be devastating to patients, because remember, the profits that come from it not only incentivize doctors, it takes a long time to create a doctor, to train a doctor. You want the best and brightest to go into this field. You want them to provide the best service for patients. You also want, and this is a lot of the funds that come from these profits go into medical research. Unfortunately, medical innovation now is almost, throughout the world, it's almost confined to the United States. The U.S. has a near monopoly on the Nobel Prize in medicine. It's not just U.S. citizens, but sometimes foreign doctors who are in residence here who are getting these awards, who are creating these great medical innovations, because systems around the world have become more statist. They've lost that profit motive. They cease to operate like free markets. One of the great fallacies, or I should say one of the great oversights of people who look at our healthcare system, is they assume the problem comes from the private aspect of our medical sector. But in fact, about going into this debate, before Obamacare was ever passed, almost half of all medicine in the United States was paid for by the government, about 47, 48%. And this feeds into that dynamic where you feel that nobody is paying for it. You can drive up costs. There's no connection between the treatment that you get and the cost that's incurred. Yeah, sure. And this has wound up gobbling up about 17% of our economy, which crowds out our ability to invest in other things like education and public works and defense, which are goals that we all share.
Well, let me ask you a question. I think the misunderstanding between what a normal, regular corporation is and what a not-for-profit corporation is, not that the executives won't make money, they can make their salaries or whatever they're currently making, the company could buy and do things. They're both corporations. The end result is that in a not-for-profit system, that means at the end of the year, whatever assets they've attained beyond the costs have to go back into the company. They can't go into the hands of the stockholders. They can't go anywhere other than putting it back into the company. And just my opinion, I don't know, it may not be right, but to do that, to limit the amount of profit that you can make in insurance companies, and I'm not saying that it has to be with individuals. Doctors should still make their money, pay off their debt, do all of that. Lawyers should still make their money when there's a problem. But the company itself that handles the administrative end of the healthcare system in this country, if that profit motive was taken out of that company, they wouldn't have to charge exorbitant fees because they make tremendous amounts of profit. I mean, you could agree with that, right?
Well, they do make
tremendous amount of profit.
Sure, there's a lot of profit that they make, but you have to be careful how you how you control the cost structure, because if you do it in a certain direction, you're going to limit the number of people who get into the field of medicine. And I've talked to medical professionals from doctors to nurses' aides, and they're afraid the direction that this country has been going, that once, for instance, Obamacare is fully implemented and comes into effect in the next couple of years, that you're going to see a great exodus of people from the field of medicine. You're going to see fewer people going in. But there are things that we can do. There's preventative medicine, preventative care that we rarely focus on. About 75% of our medical costs come from problems that arise from cancer, cardiac issues, smoking, diabetes. And in many cases, you're dealing with preventable stuff. In fact, Safeway has presented an insurance plan for their employees that has vastly cut costs.
Really?
It's really amazing what they've been able to do. And if you allowed people to choose from a wide array of options in the marketplace, allow them to cross state lines, allow the creation of state-based high-risk pools that people with pre-existing conditions, that people who are most vulnerable can be covered, I think you'll come a long way to addressing the cost structure that has been plaguing us. Unfortunately, Obamacare put everything in reverse. They did nothing to address the cost structure and instead took steps that will in fact increase the cost of health care. In fact, the Congressional Budget Office projects that the cost of health care, which as we've said is already so exorbitant, is only going to increase as we go forward. And plus I think you'll have rationing of medical care, which will be the worst of both worlds.
The bottom line of this whole discussion at this point is that we need to do something.
Absolutely.
We need to correct it somehow, take the major profit motive out. I personally believe, and this is my own personal belief, that everybody in this country, the wealthiest country on earth, all right, other than, well, there are some more, but everyone should have access to health care. Everyone should be covered in some way.
Absolutely.
You should have to be able to be, you should be able to be taken care of if you get hurt or if you get ill, you know. And I think that's a little bit of a shame on the U.S. for not having that happen. You know, there are millions of people that don't have any kind of health care, which is a shame. Let's move on real quick because time is wasting. How about a little bit about job creation? Can you talk a little bit about how you think we can start creating jobs here in Nassau, Suffolk County? We are very much at a very high level of unemployment in this county. What can we do?
Yeah, unfortunately, we do face that situation, and we have not had people in government making the decisions too often on the Republican side as well as on the Democratic side in past years to encourage job creation. The first thing you have to look at, of course, is our oppressive tax and regulatory structure. The residents of Nassau County have second highest property taxes in the nation. And people are fleeing. They're voting with their feet. They're leaving our county, leaving our state entirely in too many cases. And that in part is because of our tax structure. It's because we have the most business unfriendly environment in the nation in New York. And we have, when you compound federal, state, and local tax burdens, in many cases there are people who are giving half of what they make back to the government and not getting anything in return. You don't create jobs by punishing the very people who create the jobs. What you really need to do is reform the tax code that we have, alleviate some of the burdens that are placed on employers, simplify, get a flatter and a fairer tax code. Not that you're ever going to have a pure flat tax, but you have a system now that is so distorted by the special interests that have seeped into the process. You have distortions to the economy that take place because of the tax code we have. You know, a few years ago, the IRS created the finances of a hypothetical American family, and they gave it to several CPAs to try to do their taxes, come up with tax returns for this hypothetical American family, and no two CPAs came up with the same tax returns. It is such
we need a better way of looking at our taxes. And I happen to be one of those guys that they take more than they should, I think, from me. My
Say
family.
that on the air.
Yeah, you know, I'm one of those in that pool. But that's it. That's the price you pay for living in New York, I guess. We don't have a lot of time left for this segment of the show. And I guess I want to get into, you had mentioned that you ran for Congress in the 4th Congressional District here. And that, I guess that's the U.S., right?
Yes.
So people wouldn't get confused that it's not state, all right?
Right, it's the U.S. House.
We have about 2 minutes or so left. Are you going to run again, you think?
Yes, I plan to run again. Usually if you're crazy enough to run for office once, you're crazy enough to run a second time.
Okay.
The experience last time around, certainly I'm disappointed with the outcome, but you don't you don't make a decision like this unless you are deeply committed to our country's future. And I come into this as someone who, people talk all the time about why they get involved in this, but it didn't come later in life. I'm 38 now, but it's been clear to me early on that my interest has been in our country's history and in our government. And the great sense that you get in the course of exploring what this country is about and the people who made it great is that we stand on the shoulders of people who made tremendous sacrifices and overcame tremendous odds to give us, I think, the greatest system, the greatest country in the history of the world.
Well, I got to tell you, I applaud you for that, for fighting the fight, and
thanks.
getting out there and trying to get into the Congress and make a difference. And MNOW TV is going to be right there, all right, prodding you along. We need this, we need that, we need to do this in Congress, change some laws. And I think everybody out there, everybody from Long Island, we hope you get on there. So you seem so easy to speak with. You seem so in touch with people, that would work. Okay,
Well,
I
very
think
kind,
if you
Sal.
want anyone to get in touch with you and talk to you more about it, why don't you look right at the camera there and tell them a little bit about how to get in touch with you.
Sure. Well, I would encourage you all to log into our website, www.frankscaturro.com. My last name is spelled Scaturro. You can also email me at frank@frankscaturro.com. Also check out our Facebook page. I hope you'll reach out if you're interested.
Yeah, and I'm sure you'll be back, and we can talk a little bit more about your progression into the race. I know there's
That'd be great, Sal.
I guess it starts September. When does it actually start? Next September.
Well, it would be. We're talking November of 2012. If there's a primary, it would be in September of 2012.
So we got a little time. It's a little ways off, but ladies and gentlemen, keep Frank in your thoughts, and let's see how Frank can help families here on Long Island. And families and children really matter. That's what it's all about. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sal.
Looking in your eyes, I see a paradise. This world that I found is too good to be true. Standing here beside you, want so much to give you this love in my heart.